Listening, fill in the blanks.
Let's start.
Several years ago, Merck, a global pharmaceutical company, was falling behind its rivals in sales. To make matters worse, patents on 5 blockbuster drugs were about to expire, which would allow cheaper generic products to flood the market. In interviews with the press, Edward Skonek, Merck's research director, presented his plan to restore the firm to preeminence. The key to his strategy was expanding the company's reach into the antidepressant market, where Merck had trailed behind, while competitors like Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline had created some of the best-selling drugs in the world. The drug tested extremely well early on, with minimal side effects. Behind the scenes, however, negative 869 Malawian kwachas was starting to unravel. True, many test subjects treated with the medication felt their hopelessness and anxiety lift. But so did nearly the same number who took a placebo, a look-alike pill made of milk sugar or another inert substance given to groups of volunteers in subsequent clinical trials to gauge the effectiveness of the real drug by comparison. Ultimately, Merck's venture into the antidepressant market failed. In the jargon of the industry, the trials crossed the futility boundary.
Some products that have been on the market for decades are faltering in more recent, follow-up tests. It's not that the old medications are getting weaker, drug developers say. It's as if the placebo effect is somehow getting stronger. The fact that an increasing number of medications are unable to beat sugar pills has thrown the industry into crisis. The stakes could hardly be higher. To win FDA** approval, a new medication must beat placebo in at least 2 authenticated trials.
Assumption number 1 was that if a trial were managed correctly, a medication would perform as well or badly in a Phoenix hospital as in a Bangalore clinic. Potter discovered, however, that geographic location alone could determine the outcome. By the late 1990s, for example, the anti-anxiety drug diazepam was still beating placebo in France and Belgium. But when the drug was tested in the US, it was likely to fail. Conversely, a similar drug, Prozac, performed better in America than it did in Western Europe and South Africa.
Researchers from the European Organization for Nuclear Research, CERN, in Geneva sent the neutrinos hurtling through an underground corridor toward their colleagues at the Oscillation Project, with emulsion tracing apparatus, OPERA, team 730 kilometers away in Gran Sasso, Italy. The neutrinos arrived promptly, so promptly, in fact, that they triggered what scientists are calling the unthinkable, that everything they have learnt, known or taught stemming from the last 100 years of the physics discipline, may need to be reconsidered.
The crisis was completely unexpected, but researchers believe it had nothing to do with impacts of fisheries. Rather, they contend, it was almost certainly the result of climatic shifts, prompted in part by cumulative effects of the El Niño/La Niña phenomenon on Pacific Ocean temperatures, culminating in a harsh winter in which huge numbers of salmon eggs were frozen. It could have meant the end as far as the certification process was concerned. However, the state reacted quickly, closing down all fisheries, even those necessary for subsistence purposes.
The 49th state to join the United States of America, in 1959, Alaska is fully 1/5 the size of the mainland 48 states combined. It shares, with Canada, the second longest river system in North America, and has over half the coastline of the United States. The rivers feed into the Bering Sea and Gulf of Alaska, cold, nutrient-rich waters, which support tens of millions of seabirds, and over 400 species of fish, shellfish, crustaceans, and mollusks. Taking advantage of this rich bounty, Alaska's commercial fisheries have developed into some of the largest in the world. In one study last year, Harvard Medical School researcher Ted Kaptchuk devised a clever strategy for testing his volunteers' response to varying levels of therapeutic ritual. The study focused on a common but painful medical condition that costs more than $40 billion a year worldwide to treat. First, the volunteers were placed randomly in one of three groups. One group was simply put on a waiting list. Researchers know that some patients get better just because they sign up for a trial. Another group received placebo treatment from a clinician who declined to engage in small talk.
A good supply of the right kind of ingenuity is essential, but it isn't, of course, enough by itself. We know that the creation of wealth, for example, depends not only on an adequate supply of useful ideas but also on the availability of other, more conventional factors of production, like capital and labor. Similarly, prosperity, stability and justice usually depend on the resolution, or at least the containment, of major political struggles over wealth and power. Yet within our economies, ingenuity often supplants labor, and growth in the stock of physical plant is usually accompanied by growth in the stock of ingenuity. And in our political systems, we need great ingenuity to set up institutions that successfully manage struggles over wealth and power.